passage. Congressman Tim Griffin voted against the measure, saying the spending has become out of control, and he's on the phone with us right now in Washington. Congressman Griffin, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time, and certainly we want to know exactly what happened and what went on last night to get this bill passed and your thoughts on it.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'd like to say, first of all, that over the last couple of years, we've had a number of these bipartisan deals, if that's what you want to call them, to deal with some of the fiscal issues, funding the government, et cetera. And I have supported every single bipartisan agreement until last night. Like most of the legislation that we deal with up here, there's good and bad in it. But it was just shocking to me that this, after finding trillions of new revenue, this bill actually increased spending. I mean, the Senate couldn't find anywhere to reduce spending. So this bill adds to the deficit. It adds something like $330 billion to our deficit and continues to increase our debt. So this is the one bipartisan agreement that I just could not support. I think that what's going to happen is, after I'm long gone, my kids and grandkids are going to be paying for a lot of the avoidance of the hard decisions that we've been making here. And I will tell you this bill, there's been a lot of talk about raising taxes and what that will do to our yearly deficit, our yearly shortfall, Chris. And I was looking at some numbers this morning. We have about $1 trillion a year shortfall. We're spending about $1 trillion more than we take in. This bill will add about $60 billion in revenue a year. So bottom line is this. Before this tax increase passed, we had about $1 trillion in the hole deficit every year. Now that it has passed and brings in revenue, we've still got $1 trillion in the hole. So, I guess I want to look at the president and say, okay, you got a tax increase. Now, what are you going to do about the deficit? Because the tax increase is almost completely irrelevant when it comes to dealing with our deficit. And so the hard decisions, the cutting, were still left on the wayside, and that's why I could not support this bill. Like I said, it's got some good stuff in it. It's got some bad stuff in it, but the bad outweighed the good for me. I certainly had voted to extend the lower tax rates for everybody back in August.
Okay.
So,
well, Congressman Griffin, I certainly appreciate you coming on with us this morning. Thank you so much for your time, and we know there's still much to be done on Capitol Hill. This is heading to the president today, and we will certainly talk with you coming up in the future. Thank you, Congressman Griffin.
Love to do it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Well,
we're going to tell you more about this bill because Republican Congressman Rick Crawford of the 1st District also voted against it. He issued this statement saying, in part, the only way we can truly avoid going over any fiscal cliff is by making fundamental and permanent reforms to end Washington's spending addiction. Permanent spending controls are needed to ensure this Congress and all future Congresses do not spend our children and grandchildren into oblivion. So you can see he's very much reiterating what Congressman Tim Griffin said there about the spending. But there were other two that voted for it. Republican from District 3, Steve Womack, supported this passage, and he said, quote, while I am disappointed this deal failed to address America's most pressing issue, spending, and our $16.4 trillion debt, it was imperative that we prevented the massive tax hike on the millions of Americans who can at least afford it. The notion that because we didn't get the spending cuts we wanted and should therefore raise taxes is absurd, and the discussion on spending is far from over, end quote. Democrat Mike Ross from the 4th District voted in favor of the measure. You can read all of these statements in their entirety. Just head to our website, that's KATV.com, and we'll have those up for you after this.